in the room here, for coming out to the museum this evening, and for wearing your masks and keeping your distance. We appreciate that. We want everyone here to feel as safe as possible and to go home feeling comfortable. I also want to welcome those who are watching online. We should have a real good audience online to supplement the folks in the room. So looking forward to a great conversation and an engaged audience. I also want to take this opportunity to remind you to silence your cell phones in case you forgot to do that. Tonight's panel discussion is called The Push for Change, Legislative Pathways to Police Reform. It's the third and final program in our Future of Policing series. The first panel was in August, and the second was in September. My main duty up here is to introduce our moderator, Shakayla Alvarenga. And I just would like to briefly mention that Shakayla has done an incredible job of gathering the panelists and moderating these discussions. We're already working on more programs of this nature for next year, so look forward to seeing those announcements coming soon. Okay, here is Shakayla to introduce our panel.
Hello? There we go. Okay. So thank you all for joining us for tonight's program. As Jeff mentioned, the Push for Change, Legislative Pathways to Police Reform. So over the past few months, the Mob Museum has addressed several issues surrounding modern-day policing, including the current culture of policing and the history of American policing. And tonight we will discuss legislation related to police reform. So we have a lot to get through, so let's begin. On the right side of the stage is Wesley Jewell. He is the communications manager for the American Civil Liberties Union. Right next to him is Mr. Tom Roberts, Republican Assemblyman. He represents District 13 in the Nevada State Assembly. Joining him on the left is Mr. Aaron Ford. He is the Nevada Attorney General. And Frederick Andrus is the police chief of the Henderson Police Department. So there are two pieces of legislation related to police reform that were passed during the August special session of the Nevada legislature. Now let's talk about Senate Bill 2 and Assembly Bill 3. So Senate Bill 2, it essentially changes a 2019 bill that strengthened rights for officers facing non-criminal misconduct allegations. It eliminates a previous provision that restricted the use of officer statements in civil proceedings. And Assembly Bill 3 banned police chokeholds. It explicitly authorized people to film police on duty, and it also requires officers to intervene if they see a fellow officer using excessive force. This bill was opposed by several police unions. So Assemblyman Tom Roberts, we'll start with you. Why was it important for our community to address the unfolding situation that originally started in Minneapolis?
Well, first, thank you for having me here tonight. And so the audience may know about my background is I spent 34 years in law enforcement, 9.5 years in the United States Air Force. In my last 25 years with Metro, I retired as assistant sheriff a little over 2 years ago. So I got a little experience in this area. But why it's important is policing, we're only as legitimate as our community allows us to be in policing. We get our authority. It's vested in us from our community. And when our community has an issue with the conduct of the way our police department is conducting itself, or whatever issue might be concerned to our citizens, we need to listen to them and we need to respond to that. The issues in Minneapolis, as everybody knows, swept across the country and actually impacted us here. Use of force has been an issue here in Southern Nevada with policing. While I was tenured at Metro, we did significant reforms over the past 12 years, and so we were kind of ahead of the game. But still, I think there's work to do here in Nevada, and there's always work to do in policing. It's an evolving profession, and I think policing and the legislature and everybody should work together to move the bar so that there are segments of the community that support and have faith and trust in the police.
As Roberts mentioned, he's a former assistant sheriff with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. You supported Assembly Bill 3, but you called it a personal struggle.